Today is geothermal and then a little conversation about sustainable food. So, oh, here comes Jorge, but that's all right. We're still starting. So geothermal is one of the very popular renewables. Obviously, you can only do it if you have geothermal resources. So we do it quite a bit in the Pacific Northwest. So here's the here we go, US map. So temperatures, dark red, 300 C, super hot regions all along our Cascadia Fault, up and down the Pacific Northwest. We produce a lot of geothermal energy. And it is very sustainable. It's not going away. The Earth produces an immense amount of heat, keeping us warm.
That's just geothermal is just heat produced by the earth.
Yep. Yep, we'll go through how it works.
How deep?
10 kilometers. This is 10K. So from 0 to 10K. So you don't want, I mean, 10K is deep. You're probably not going to be drilling for that. But most of the resources that we use in our area are shallow. I mean, just think about like any hot spring, right? That's not super high temp, that's the lower temp stuff. But that can all be used for both heating and cooling super effectively. So we have quite a bit of this resource around. And it's being tapped for sure. So I mean, we're 0.4% doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a bunch of production. 25% of the world's production of geothermal happens basically in this region right here. So we'll talk about how it works. This is the US industry geothermal nameplate. Net capacity here on this is megawatts, right? And then this is the scale of years. So I just found this one the other day. I didn't have any really current information, but winter capacity, summer capacity. So we use it for cooling. You can use hot for cooling because you can convert that heat into cool just by transferring it. The same way that we transfer air conditioners, transfer heat, right? They can take any hot temperature, pull it in, compress it, and then evaporate it. That process absorbs heat and makes colder. So that's any of that function is enhanced by starting with hot temperatures. And it can be any hot temperature. Like air conditioners in the summer are taking 90-degree air, which is kind of hot air, right? And cooling it. So if you don't do that and you just supply it with some geothermal energy, then it's much more efficient. So I'll show you that down here in this slide, but at least this gives us an idea of megawatts, right? Between 35 and 4,000 megawatts. That's a lot of energy being produced in the US. All right, so there's different ways to do it. You're going to end up with a homework. I don't have it developed yet, but you're going to end up with a homework that talks about the different ways to do it. If you have low temperature geothermal, and that's essentially ground temperature. So right out here, if you dig down 3 feet, it'll be about 50 to 60 degrees. The dirt will be that temperature. Okay. It's that way in Central Oregon. It's that way here in the valley. It's that way in the coast.
Fahrenheit, Celsius.
Fahrenheit. Yeah. So you're thinking, okay, 50 degrees, that's not great. But if it's 30 degrees outside, 50 degrees feels pretty good. It's pretty warm. So if you take that heated air and supply it to your heat pump, then your heat pump's not having to use 30-degree air. It's getting to use 50-degree air, right? So you can do that through a process of just putting some pipe in the ground and heat exchange it, right? Take the cold air from outside, run it through the ground, warm it up to 55 degrees. That's pretty common. And then take it into your system and then heat it to whatever temperature you want. You're making that temperature differential much smaller. That's low temperature geothermal. Okay.
Is that dependent at all on altitude, or is it just 3 feet down anywhere?
It's pretty much 3 feet down. It's the insulation value of like our topsoil and then the next few layers.
Yeah. Okay.
I have this system in Central Oregon in Primeville because I have an off-grid cabin thing. I put a bunch of pipe in the ground and I didn't go 2 feet because I hit rock at like just under 2 feet. I was like, I'm done with my little excavator, right? So I just laid it at 2 feet. I get about 54-degree temperature coming out of that pipe. When I show up over there and it's like -1 out, and I go in the cabin and it's like 54, I'm like, it's super warm. It feels hot. And then to get it from 54 to 68 or whatever you want, it is pretty easy to do. So that value is, there's a lot of value in that. It does take some land, right? You're not gonna do this in your backyard. It's gonna take some space to lay some pipe. But
the summer?
I was just gonna say, and the flip side in the summer, 54 feels like air conditioning. When it's like 100 outside in Prineville. So I walk into my cabin, it's like 60 degrees in there. It's like the AC's been on all day. And the only thing that's happening is a little fan is circulating the air through the ground. Little fan's driven off of solar. I have everything off of solar over there. And it feels literally freezing in there. We have to open the doors to warm it up. So,
Did you buy a kit or you just like?
no, I just laid pipe.
What?
Yeah, I didn't even lay the right pipe. I just laid plastic pipe.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, what's the best material for that?
The best material is good heat conducting material.
Metal?
So
Okay.
I think the Port of Portland just used steel tubes. So we'll talk about what the Port of Portland did, but yeah, and theirs is super effective. Very effective. All right, so there's a short video that shows you some 2 minutes.
Or HFR, geothermal energy, is a renewable form of energy harnessed from the Earth itself. Hot granites buried deep below the Earth's surface contain a huge amount of energy, and the Cooper Basin contains the hottest granites on Earth
This would be
at
hot.
reasonable drilling depth. This is a known resource with an energy potential comparable with Australia's coal reserves. The Cooper Basin hot rock resource is within reach of conventional oil drilling rigs and is known to cover 1,500 square kilometres at a depth of approximately 3.5 to 4 kilometres. Fractured granite found at this level is heated naturally by radiogenic decay from the elements within it. This heat is insulated by thousands of metres of sedimentary rocks and slowly builds up over millions of years. Injecting water under pressure into the granite, in the same way as the oil and gas industry, can widen the fractures. This hydraulic injection triggers tiny microseismic events that enhance the permeability of joints a significant distance away from the injection well, creating a geothermal reservoir. Low temperature water flows through the reservoir, increasing to approximately 280 degrees Celsius at 5,000 meters below the surface. Geodynamics uses a closed pipe circuit to bring the naturally hot pressurized fluid to the surface before running it through a heat exchanger that extracts the thermal energy. The cooled, pressurized fluid is injected back into the reservoir. The closed loop system means the pressurized fluid is never exposed to air or light and does not diminish at all during the process, meaning zero water loss from the system. The superheated steam from the heat exchanger is used to drive a binary steam turbine in an adjacent power plant, thereby producing emission-free baseload electricity for supply to the national grid.
Hot water. So there's a couple things there that are a little controversial. First of all, injecting, right? So when you inject that and split the rock, that can cause natural water resources to be fouled, and we don't want to do that. So they really got to pick their regions where they can do that. All right.
Iceland used it like that too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But do they
Yep.
have to dig as deep? Cause it's like, no, it's not that.
I think I saw
Oh,
something.
right.
They're-
They have like
Actually,
resorts
it's,
there.
Anywhere from 0 to 1K, they can get that kind of temperatures. It's
They got
crazy.
like heated water parks in Iceland.
Yeah,
You could just go, it's all heated.
we have that in Oregon,
Yeah.
right? Canita, yeah, which just reopened, right? Yeah. So
like
it's
Oregon,
Central
right?
Oregon.
Or no?
It's over
No,
towards
it's
Bend,
Yeah,
like
it's been-
26.
But it's-
It's on the native reserve.
from here, it's like an hour and a half. to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's big geothermal production out there too. And then Klamath Falls has a big geothermal. I went to school in Klamath Falls. All of Oregon's Institute of Technology is heated and cooled with geothermal. So they have no geothermal heating and cooling bills. It's a natural resource. They have some power generation bills, right? But they also have a bunch of solar and they're almost net zero now at OIT. It's pretty impressive. So I have one picture that I took when I was down there. This is what it looks like in the winter when we get a big snow at OIT. Because they run the pipes under all the walkways. So that just melts off. Like you never have snow on the walkways or ice or anything.
I've seen driveways. do
So,
that.
it's
They run-
brilliant. Yeah.
My buddy's house, that's how he heats his whole house. He has
Yeah.
No heat, just floor heat, that's it.
Yeah, so he's just circulating water.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes. All right, so this is what they were just talking about. So a high temperature system is gonna put water down, bring water up in a different zone, right? So they're just running it through hot rocks down there. There's space down there. And
How- Without a pipe, I mean, I don't know much about.
There's
this.
no
How does it
pipe.
Not just disperse
they
into the ground?
literally they fill up a cavity down.
So there's an empty space.
Yep,
That's
so
water.
they
right?
look for these empty spaces
Okay,
that are geothermal pockets, and that's where they're gonna put their power plant, or somewhere close, because they can pipe it a little ways. Right?
yeah,
So, and it's an enclosed cavity down there, like it's pressurized, heated space. So when you drill down and tap it, it's like popping a bubble.
right,
So then
So a lot of-
you send down your hot water to fill all that space. And if
Right.
you do this strategically and have your upwell close enough, then you'll get that transfer will happen.
Wow.
Like it's a big
How do they-
geotechnical operation where
they
they
keep it
do,
from getting too hot that it turns to steam.
or they want it to turn to steam.
Oh, it turns.
They
to
just don't
steam.
want it to turn to steam till it comes up. They keep it under pressure. Just like
Oh,
when you boil a pot of water and you put the lid on, if you hold that lid on tight,
right,
it doesn't boil,
right,
doesn't do anything, and then when you pop it off, then it just boils and steams immediately.
right.
So that's what they're saying, it has to be a closed, or it would just steam off. Yeah. And then the steam just drives it, you can just think of it as a steam turbine, right? Any hot fluid like that, under high pressure, you let it go through a small nozzle, you can crazy amount of velocity in that, you can spin a big turbine. Then they cool it off. Let it cool and then go back down. Cause they don't pull out, I mean, this actually should be red, cause it comes out of the turbine pretty hot. The turbine's not cooling it. The turbine's just using that hot pressure, right? So they don't wanna send the hot down and not get as hot back, so I think that,
He makes it hotter after the passing through the turbine.
yeah. Yeah, it can heat it up.
Yep.
Yep. So
What's the
here,
waste-
huh?
The waste, Brian, what's Brian? Is that like,
So if they're using salt water, so sometimes they send salt water down because that has a higher heat transfer rate. In other words, it'll get hotter than regular water and it'll hold more energy. So then when they bring it up, they get through that process, they'll get what's called brine, I guess, when you,
It's the residue.
yeah, when you send salt water through the evaporation process, you get,
so
kind of-
what's left?
yeah,
Normally the brine is under the turbine, because normally the turbine is the one separate the particles.
yeah, that's where the evaporation's taking place.
Normally there,
Yeah,
one turbine works like that, the brine is in the
yeah.
part of the turbine.
Yep. So here's just where geothermal lies within the group. It's above solar, which is interesting. You don't hear much about geothermal.
There's a difference between flash and EGS.
Yeah, so that's one of the things you're gonna do in your homework is learn about the different flashes that can happen. So there's like, I think I have a slide on it. Yeah, so it has everything to do with how much geothermal temperature you have, right? If you have high geothermal temperatures, then you can do a double flash and a triple flash, which means you can steam it multiple times. It's so hot, right? So these are different power generation systems, single flash, double flash, triple flash. How much of that going on? Okay, so obviously the hotter you get, the more you can do with it as far as generating electricity. But a lot of this dry flash, single flash stuff is available. Like you can get to it easy. You have to go so deep, right? Those wells are expensive. So you're gonna look into what the differences are between single, double, and triple. I don't have that assignment up yet, but it will come up. Then the future of geothermal is pretty good. They're just gonna keep developing their efficiencies. This one said there's a couple coming online in 20 and 21. I didn't look in to see if whether they came online or not, but our region of volcanoes is obviously a very geothermal area. So Hawaii, Alaska, Utah, California, Oregon, all of these places have a lot of geothermal. Ring of Fire, right? We're the Ring of Fire, all the volcanoes. So it's available. It does take the land, like, it's not like you can go put it anywhere, right? You gotta put it where the geothermal is, and if that's private land, then something's gotta be negotiated there. This says the current geothermal is third, behind hydro, biomass, ahead of solar. Everyone know what biomass is?
Yeah, that's it's like almost compost.
It could be algae, it could be compost. What's the most popular biomass?
Two,
No, that's up there though. How do we heat our houses in Oregon? Very common wood. Wood is a biomass, yep. So wood generation, there's some big wood generation plants out there. The thing with wood generation, which is interesting, and this is maybe new in the last 30 years, is the waste from wood generation is very appealing to the folks in agriculture. So that soot that you have after you burn wood, that is a very attractive thing for the folks in agriculture. They put it on the ground as kind of like a fertilizer, but what it does is it creates like a honeycomb structure. So if you look at a piece of charred wood that's kind of been burned up, but still in its chunk, you take that thing and look at it close, it has a honeycomb structure. And what that allows, if they put it in the soil, is allows the nutrients to attach to that surface area. And there's a lot of surface area, right? So they can sell that biomass now after burning and making electricity, then they can sell the biomass to the agriculture industry. So they're selling the waste of a renewable. That's always attractive. Yeah. So they sell the wastewater treatment plant in Gresham, right, has a digester, a methane producer, and then they have a methane generator where they burn methane and make electricity, right? So they do that from the solids, from our solids, they're creating methane, and then they're generating electricity, and they basically generate all their own electricity. Well, the waste from that process, you know what it is? It's a solid. They can sell that to agriculture too, because they've taken all of the bad microorganisms out of it through the methane process. So that's pretty amazing that from our waste, they're creating electricity. And then also from that waste, they're selling it back to ag, which is a little awkward to know that then they grow food in it and sell it back to us and then we eat it. Like, wait, what? It's
isn't that
really quite full circle. Yeah.
whole sustainable thing
Yeah,
is?
no, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's phenomenal. So there you go. There's one more. Let's watch this. Oh, better have it open. Or get
This marks the
advertisement.
potential start of
A little advertisement.
and we will soon be hit with a silent, untraceable attack.
Okay.
Hot fractured rock,
Oh,
or
it's the same one.
HFR, geothermal energy, is a renewable.
This one.
You may have relaxed in a natural hot springs or seen the old faithful geyser blasting hot water into the air in Yellowstone National Park. But have you ever thought of where all that heat comes from? Well, it comes from deep beneath the surface of the earth, and it's called geothermal energy. And we can use it to generate clean, renewable electricity. Okay, here's how geothermal works. Heat from the Earth's crust warms water that is seeped into underground reservoirs. In some places, when water becomes hot enough, it can. And we
I
can
actually
use
wish
it
they
to
would, like,
generate clean,
slow down
renewable
on
electricity.
that one image. Sorry, back to that.
Okay, here's how geothermal works. Heat from the
Okay, so the core is huge. The core underneath us is absolutely giant. This is the crust, right? This little piece here, keeping us from the core. So this energy in here is, it's endless. I mean, it's endless. And if it ends, we end. So there you go.
the Earth's crust warms water that is seeped into underground reservoirs. In some places, when water becomes hot enough, it can break through the Earth's surface as steam or hot water. This usually happens where the Earth's crust or plates meet and shift. In the past, taking advantage of geothermal energy was limited to areas where hot water flowed near the surface. But as geothermal technologies advance, we can leverage even more of these natural, renewable energy sources. Engineers have developed a few different ways to produce power from geothermal wells drilled into the ground. Have a look at this. It's a dry steam geothermal power plant, and it's the most common type of geothermal technology used today.
So dry steam was that lower one, right? That's before flash.
What's flat?
That's gonna be your job to figure that one out. But just think about, so when water goes to steam, it's kind of a slow process. Like when you boil water, that's dry steam. That's dry steam, right? Flash is when you're just like under pressure and you let it go and it flashes.
Oh, okay,
A lot more energy dissipated.
that's what it's called, a flash point,
Yep.
alright.
Ground steam flows directly to a turbine to drive a generator that produces electricity.
Then there's second
Pretty
and
straightforward.
double and triple.
Another geothermal technology is called a flash steam power plant. A pump pushes hot fluid into a tank at the surface where it cools. As it cools, the fluid flashes or quickly turns into vapor. The vapor then drives a turbine and powers a generator. A binary cycle plant works differently. It uses two types of fluid. Hot fluid from underground heats a second fluid called a heat transfer fluid in a giant heat exchanger. The second fluid has a much lower boiling point than the first fluid, and so it flashes into vapor at a lower temperature. When the second fluid flashes, it spins a turbine that drives a generator. The environmental benefits of this clean, round-the-clock, renewable energy source are substantial. Low emissions, small physical footprint, and minimal environmental impact. The few byproducts that can come up are often re-injected underground. Geothermal energy can also help recycle wastewater. In California, wastewater from the city of Santa Rosa is injected into the ground to generate more geothermal energy. Some plants do produce solid waste. That solid waste may contain minerals that we can remove and sell, which lowers the cost of this energy source. The US Geological Survey estimates that untapped geothermal resources in the United States, if developed, could supply the equivalent of 10% of today's energy needs and cut our dependence on fossil fuels.
So
In fact-
to 10%?
Yeah. Well, the 10% is forecasted. There's easily that much available.
Electricity generated by geothermal energy already provides about 60% of the power along the Northern California coast. From the Golden Gate Bridge to the Oregon state line, geothermal energy, helping to push America toward energy independence and a clean, renewable way to meet our growing energy demands.
All right. Got it? It actually is one of the simpler ones, like drill down, tap the hot water, and then, use that hot water as a resource. There's these three categories. These are not the flash points, but these are the kind of the three classifications: low temperature, moderate temperature, high temperature. High temperature 150 to 302. 150 C, 302 Fahrenheit. Klamath Falls has quite a bit of geothermal and they run it not only through the city streets, but they also are heating most of the city's public buildings with it. So just take the hot water that's after it's been used, maybe at the geothermal plant for electricity, it's still pretty hot. Pipe it to these structures, run piping through the floor or through heat. They have heat systems that work off of like shields on the ceiling to send heat down or run it through the floor. It's used quite a bit down
Is
there.
it something that will run out? Or is that something that will always?
Yeah, because
So
it's
there's
coming
no
from,
condition where anything changes underground where you can't. use that
no,
resource?
not that I'm aware
Other than
of,
a
no.
earthquake maybe would just damage.
This
something?
is surface geothermal, so this stuff has worked its way to the surface
Okay.
for so long, it just keeps coming.
Okay.
So nothing's gonna shut that off.
So
I
this-
guess if you had some kind of earthquake, it could interrupt that.
Right.
So this is not like a drill
No,
system, this is
Like an
just what-
earthquake.
no, this is literally like when I went way back in the day to OIT. And that school, all of its structures were up on a hill and down at the bottom of the hill were the pits. And we would go down and sit in the pits and they were just hot, steamy water. The first pit was like 200 degrees. And then students over time built a second pit for it to fall in and cool off. And then it would fall into another one and cool off and you could get in the bottom one. So it's just hot. It's like a hot spring. I mean, that's what it is, but it comes out at like 280 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, it's almost flashing when it comes out. So hot.
There are some guys though that they move, they don't stay on the same place. keep
Oh, they-
moving and
Yeah,
moving.
their penetration, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. All right. We talked about this. This is like home geothermal. And it's fairly popular if you have the space. These are vertical pipes, just like I was talking about. I laid them horizontally like this. But you can also do it vertically downward and then cycle the air or fluid down and up.
Do you get
So,
better heat that way because it's deeper?
huh?
Do you get better heat that way because it's deeper?
I think you get, it's a less of a footprint, so you can go straight down
Oh.
instead of spreading out. So
Right.
if you have less available footprint, I think it's the advantage. I don't think the heat substantially changes unless you get through a layer.
Right.
And then they're not
Say you
doing,
spread them out.
So,
you're supposed to spread them out.
Yeah, say you spread them out, and then
Yep.
what if you like bundle them closer together? Would they like heat sideways?
So the design is to spread them out. So you get better heat exchange from the warm rock
I mean,
ground
it's coming from
to the
outside.
pipe. Yeah, yeah. So if you bundle it up, you just get a smaller heat exchange area. And I think I ditched 3 ditches, but then I laid like 3 pipes in each ditch, but tried to like spread them out. So it definitely wasn't. It wasn't pro, but it worked pretty well. I was like, wow. So the Port of Portland, I'll make this a little bigger.
what do you mean, what's in a pro? Are you an engineer?
I am, but I'm also just a hacker at times. So I hacked that in there just to see if it would work. In hindsight, I was like, man, I wish I would have spent more time because I think I could have got better efficiencies. But our cabin's super small and it does perfect. So it's very fun. So the Port of Portland built a new building and they wanted it as sustainable as possible. So they put down vertical pipe into the ground. These are like 120 feet deep. I don't know, 200, I think it says, but this is so. Yeah, it's
Oh, the
such a,
airport?
yeah, it's at the
Oh.
airport. Yep. So they can sustain, in the building, they can sustain about 62 degrees year round through that system. They are sending fluid down, fluid up, and then heat exchanging it. But the heat exchangers are just direct heat exchange. So it's like the floor fluid heat systems that you see that are freestanding, radiator style. They do the same thing, but they run them kind of just above offices. And then have heat shields on them to deflect the heat down, and then they run it through the floor. It's remarkable how well it works. Worked really well. It's very expensive. So
Very
I,
expensive to build.
Yeah.
So after a certain amount of time it pays for itself,
Yes.
that's probably not for a while.
yep. They also have a digester, which I think this may talk about it. and give us more data.
First off, if you haven't made money with AI yet, go.
I
away.
haven't.
AI is the biggest.
I gotta get to it.
Port of Portland is a large quasi-state agency in Oregon, which operates 3 airports, including Portland International. It also operates several marine terminals along the mighty Columbia River and sees thousands of tons of cargo come through its facilities every week. When they decided to relocate their headquarters from a downtown high-rise to the airport, they had a prime opportunity to go green and be proud of it.
This is exciting. This is a very new building. Forbes magazine rated it one of the top 10 greenest buildings in the world.
In the world.
Port of Portland. Can you believe that?
That's right, and they're just a few points away from being LEED platinum.
Hi guys, Andrew Mallory. Good to see you, Andrew. Oh, wow. Good to see you. Now, Bill, you're the executive director, so you're pretty much at the top of the pyramid as far as the organization.
Yes.
Tell us about this whole building. This is the most fascinating.
Well, the Port of Portland operates both the seaport here in Portland. We have an international seaport and the airport. And so the decision to build the building was really a decision about bringing those two parts of our organization into one place. In the course of building the building as well, it creates just a wonderful working environment for our staff.
So there's like no interior walls, so it lets the light all the way through the building. So you don't have to have lights on as anywhere near as much as normally during the day. So there's no cubicles, there's no privacy, which employees really had an issue with in the beginning. They're like, really, we're not gonna have an office that we can be private in, you know? So there was a bunch of struggles with this project. Oh, dang. I think that you can see those. Maybe they'll talk about it.
Environment for our staff, lots of natural light, excellent circulation, great communication back and forth. Virtually no private offices in the building. Everybody's out in the open.
The whole building is a complete system, like a living mechanism.
It is. So we recycle all of the water that comes into the building, and the water is treated through essentially a man-made wetlands called a living machine. And then the water either goes back into the toilets and the urinals, or it goes to the evaporator for the building heating and cooling system. The heating and cooling system itself is really extraordinary. It's a very deep earth system that sends pipes 300 to 400 feet into the ground and uses the ambient temperature of the earth to either heat or cool the water depending on the time of the year. And this can save 70 to 80% of the energy that would otherwise be spent heating and air conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely.
That type of you eating.
I think it's the largest application in the state of this type of system. And then the building materials are all sustainable. The carpets are old plastic bottles and rewoven into.
These are?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
Plastic bottles. Fast growing red oak, which is a very sustainable building material. We paid great attention to that as we developed it.
So what's the philosophy behind the over top green building this is?
We made investments that we could justify based on a complete financial.
It's shaped like a ship, in case you're wondering what's with that shape. That's supposed to be a ship.
Analysis of the various features of the building. We wanted to do that to in part demonstrate to our community it can be done.
So when it comes to saving money by going green, what do you estimate you're actually saving on an annual basis?
The port is about $3 million a year less expensive to operate today than it was before we moved into this building. So it's a very significant savings. Yeah, well, more or less, or actually our customers got a break.
No, customers did not get a break. It's like a $260 million project. The savings is 3 million. You can do the math on the payback, but it's super cool. I have to admit. I don't know if they show. Oh, maybe there's more there.
Pacific Northwest, Andrew, some of that view you were talking about.
This is why I moved here, because of this, Mount Hood, we ski up there in the winter, the summers are gorgeous, beautiful. But we're here for something slightly more important than the view, right?
The Columbia River.
And the Columbia River. How about 10,000 square feet of green roof? Check this out. You ever seen anything this big before, Doc?
This is over at the top. Hi, Dan.
Hi there.
This is exciting to be here. This is really a privilege.
Thank you. It's
Andrew,
great
nice
to
to
have
have
you.
you.
Nice to meet you.
This keeps the building cool in the summertime, and does it help in the winter?
It does. It helps to kind of trap the stormwater, and the plants use the water, and then whatever is left over drains off into the drainage system.
Have a look at this. I'll just move over here. Not allowed to stand on the green part, but I'm standing on the stones here. You can see. How deep is this, Dan?
This is about 6 inches.
And it's just starting to become green now. It was dormant over
It was green when we planted it, and then it goes dormant over the summer. And then now with the fall rains, it's green back up again.
Does it flower?
It does flower.
Reminds me of the Scottish Highlands, like the moss and the heather. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very similar kind of consistency.
All right. It's a great start. So let's see here. I don't have your project up yet, but you're gonna research the flashpoint producers, and there's one other project, and that's the Sustainable Food Lab. So you'll read through this, but what you're gonna do over a 3-day period is you're gonna track where you get your food. Okay, so everywhere you get your food, if you pull it out of the pantry or the fridge, you have to think about where you got it. Okay,
Like where in your house?
nope, like where you got the food.
Okay.
Like if you pull it out of the pantry or the fridge, you have to like, okay, where did I get that? Was it Safeway? Was it? Where was it, right? Thriftway, Winco, I don't know where you shop for your food, but track that 3-day period. Okay, and then also watch this video. This is another short one produced by the tribes, and it's on sustainable food. So you have a little history in that you went through COVID and saw the reaction to that situation and toilet paper of all things, but there was other things that were missing out of the grocery store when you went there, like it was being raided, literally. So sustainable food production is not currently what we have going on, just so you all know. Like if we end up with a situation in this world, our food supply comes to us almost daily, essentially. So if something goes bad, we lose our chain, like we lose all the truck drivers that are driving it all over the country. The stores will be empty, they say, in 1 to 2 days. So that's worth thinking about. And this is what this video talks about, is sustainable food sources. So go through this, look at that submission, and I think I gave you until the 3rd also on that one to log your food resources and watch this video. Okay. Then next week, we're going to start into Revit, which is a software, an AutoCAD product.
We're actually gonna use Reddit?
Absolutely. So I've had you download it in the past. If you're really into it and you want to download it, you can. It's just like an AutoCAD download. You go through that process again, and this time you choose Revit. But we have it all on here. You can just drive it in here. It's a pretty complicated software. But the cool thing about Revit is you can build a structure and then you can do an energy model on it. So you can place that structure somewhere in the world, anywhere. Could be here in Gresham, could be in Primeville, could be at the coast, could be in Alaska. You can put it wherever you want. It'll pull in the data, the weather data from that location. And then you can run weather models on it in the summer, see how much it's going to cost to heat and cool it. Run weather models on it in the winter, see how much it's going to cost to heat it, right? And then you can change the materials and run it again. Like make the walls thicker, make the insulation higher, make the roof at a different pitch, right? Or at a higher insulation value, run the model again. It's really a cool software. So in this class, we like to at least expose you to it. That's it. You got your projects. I'll probably start a little Revit lecture online this week, so. Look
We'll
for
have
that.
two labs, this, the food one and the other one.
Yep,
So the food, all you do is just like write down the foods and where
Yep.
you got from, that's it.
yep, just log where it comes from. Yep,
Like every time you go eat.
every time you go to eat. Yep, like, yeah, I don't know what you just ate
You
for
don't-
lunch, but think about where you went to get it.
And did we just,
I was gonna say,
Chick-fil-A, we just write Chick-fil-A?
I think so.
By the way, I checked, how many volcanoes are in Oregon, there's 13.
Yeah.
You gotta find the exact. And you can have fun.